Yes.
Darshan.
Okay. Welcome back, everyone. Welcome to the second session of the day, which will be on startup ecosystem and IPR by Dr. I.G. Ratish, IUC IPRS. I invite Sita Lakshmi, second semester LLM IP PhD, to introduce a resource person. Sita?
Thank you, Darshana, for the invite. It is a deep pleasure and pride that I welcome my professor, Dr. I.G. Ratish, to this session, which is also the last session of the last day of this program. Dr. I.G. Ratish, who is working as assistant professor at the Indian University Center for IPR Studies at CUSAT, has been working here since August 2015 and is also a registered Indian patent agent. Dr. I.G. Ratish is entrusted with the task of facilitating filing of patents among teaching and research fraternity and sensitization of IPRs across various academic forums. He is also the coordinator of the IPR facilitation cell at IUC IPRS. He has facilitated the filing of 25 patent applications filed in the name of various universities in Kerala, including one in the USA, in India. He has also drafted and filed 10 patent applications of individuals or entrepreneurs and startups in India. He holds a PhD degree in chemistry with 11 research publications in peer-reviewed journals. A compound developed by him reached advanced stages of testing against cancer cell lines at National Cancer Institute, USA. He has 4 research scholars working in the area of IPR under his guidance for a PhD degree. Specialized in the area of patent filing and related matters, he was also instrumental in propelling the invalidation of key patents of rival pharmaceutical companies at various judicial and quasi-judicial forums. Prior to joining CUSAT, he has worked for around 7 years in a couple of reputed multinational companies, pharmaceutical companies in R&D and patent department, respectively. I invite you to this session, sir. Kindly you may join the session. Thank you.
Thank you, Sita, for the introduction. So without much ado, allow me to share my screen.
You are not audible. I don't know where it is my problem.
Am I not audible? Hello?
Actually, it's feeble, sir. Your voice is very feeble. So, what about others?
Yes, ma'am. Feeble.
Is my screen visible?
Yes, sir.
Am I audible now or?
Yes, sir, you are audible.
Okay, thank you. Without much delay, I'll right away move on to my topic. So I'm going to cover the startup ecosystem and IPR in this particular session. So let's start with looking at what basically the history of entrepreneurship is. As you're aware that previously also, I mean, prior to this startup wave that has emerged, particularly in India, since 2000s, and then post 2015 is when we have seen there's been an exponential rise in the startup number of startup companies being registered in India. So traditionally, we have observed that if you look at the prehistoric times in India, commodities such as jute, cotton, and spices were something that were being traded, and those people who were trading them were the entrepreneurs at that point of time. But even if you look to the entrepreneurship ecosystem prior to 1980s, it was not favorable, primarily because of the rigid policies that we had, And there were lack of government initiatives also in the side to provide incentives to these various entrepreneurs. Likewise, there was also lack of incentives. Now, if you look the journey from 1980 to 2000 to the recent times, that's 2015 onwards, you see the sharp change that has occurred. So 1980s, we were into cotton, spices, and jute. And then you see in the 1980s is when the era of computers came in particularly, and 2000, if I'm talking the context of India, is when you see that we moved into the World Wide Web over there. So internet was something that came into being. And then you had portable devices such as laptops coming in early of 2010 in India. So that's where you see the entrepreneurship developing from 1980s to 2010. Now, post 2010, you see the rise. So now we have moved from laptops to mobile phones, and mobile phones have got almost every app that you can locate for every purpose. And particularly in the COVID context, if you see, if you have to purchase vegetables, milk, or even other goods such as electronics and all. Previously also probably we were using e-commerce tools, but since COVID, even the daily essential items we are actually depending on these various apps that we have. So whether it's for the vegetables or whether it's for the meat or the chicken, so everything you see that it can be actually these days ordered just by downloading an app and making the necessary payment. It will be delivered at your doorstep. So that's the kind of change that we have seen uh, in the scenario, in the current scenario. Now, if you look at startups, particularly in the Indian context, so there is this report of NASSCOM specifically deals this journey over here. So you can see currently we are India, it is the third largest startup across the globe. And most of these founders or startups have an average age of 28 years. So it's normally the young blood which is actually venturing into the startup business. And out of these, about 9% of startup founders are in fact women. And you find that 800 to 2000 is the number of new startup companies that are actually moved from 480 to 800. So the figures are almost doubled in the 5 years. And in 2020, in fact, if you look at what's been mentioned on the website of Startup India, currently we have about 52,000 odd companies that are registered as startups across India. So that's grown up exponentially. So the startup ecosystem, that what it also indicates is that the government policies and initiatives have indeed been fruitful. So you can see that the startup ecosystem has been growing substantially over there, exponentially over there. Number of incubators. So incubation is one of the stages prior to setting up of your startup. So we look into that. So 40, there's been an increase of 40% in the number of incubators that have grown during the period from 2014 to 15. And as you see, the 50% of the growth in the share has been of female entrepreneurs in this last 12 months. And most of these startups are basically tech based. So I believe when I mentioned that, you find a lot of apps for these every activity that probably every household activity that you need to perform, you'll find that there is a solution on these applications by way of these mobile applications. So you can literally look at anything, right from scheduling your tasks to buying anything from the market, or even in fact these days you have wherein you can send across your lunch or your items through these various service providers directly to a second person. So you're not required to travel. So they also do the job of a postman, but then the postman may delay the process. This happens instantly. So I in fact avail this particular opportunity. So there's this app by name Quicker in Kerala, which delivers anything from foods, vegetables, letters, anything to a person within this geography. I think it's there in Cochin. I don't know whether it's there also there in other parts of Kerala. So you book it on the app, and immediately within an hour, it would reach there. They'll come and collect it from you, whatever object you are intending to transfer, and then immediately within an hour or maybe within half an hour, it reaches the recipient. So you save a lot of time over there, and also save your resources. So if I have to actually, in fact, personally get this thing delivered, so I may have to spend maybe 200-300 rupees on my on the petrol, and then likewise also waste my time for that. So this in fact has made our lives more comfortable and convenient when you look at how these startups have evolved over the period of these last 5 to 10 years. And this wave has been particularly more predominant since 2015, when we had the Startup India being set up in 16. And as you see in the last 5 years, it's grown. The number of startup companies, in fact, that have been set up have grown substantially, or have grown up exponentially over there. Most of them, a substantial portion of them, are tech-based startups. So you see the total startups are expected to rise, is what it says. So it's a 2015 report, but we have, in fact, more than what they have predicted over there. So currently we have close to 15,000 odd startups registered under the Startup India scheme. Majority of these startups are from metro cities, but that is probably 5 years back. But now you see, I can talk about the in the case of Kerala. So we have Kerala Startup Mission in Kerala, which is based out of Kochi, but then it's also spreading across small towns as well. It's there in Trivandrum, but it's also there in Thrissur. So you find that it is also spreading and creating various campuses so that it can cater to the various not just urban population, but also the rural population. So you'll find they provide these facilities which are necessary for a startup to function, right from administrative, the technical aspects. So all those things are provided for a nominal fees if you are incubated in their incubation centers. So that's a kind of leverage you can have if you want to establish a company or an entity as a startup over there. So you also find that 60% of the new jobs were created by SMEs during 1993 to 2013. So here they're particularly talking about small and medium enterprises. But you see that it's also translated into the startup ecosystem as well. And funding is one of the key requirements for a startup to grow. So you find that there are a lot of venture capitalists who are actually coming in. Likewise, you also have angel investors who are putting in a lot of money on these innovative ideas over there. So there are certain benefits for the startup companies. Likewise, you also have benefits for the venture capitalist or the angel investors over there with regards to tax break. Particularly angel investors, if you're investing in a startup company, you can avail certain tax benefits if you're doing it for the purpose of funding a startup company over there. And with regards to creating an ecosystem, what they have also done is they have eased the procedure for setting up of startups. And if a startup company fails, it's also easy for you to dissolve the startup company. So the total process of setting up a startup has been relaxed, and it has been very conducive. So how do you compare a startup with an entrepreneurship? So entrepreneurship can be, setting up a hotel or setting up a physical retail store or a supermarket. But then how is it different from the traditional, or how entrepreneurship is different from startups in that sense? So what it is innovative. So I have an example in my next slide of how I compare an entrepreneurship with a startup business over there. So first, it has to be innovative. It has to be technology driven. So this is basically a general definition. We'll also look at how startups have been classified by the Government of India. And scalability is one of the big assets that you have. So for example, if I am starting a hotel, a restaurant, or probably maybe just a chain of supermarkets, so my scalability would be restricted to that particular geography or to that particular area where I may be setting up my hotel, or maybe setting up my this particular supermarket business. These are in the sense that they may not have any innovative ideas over there. These are just a traditional ways wherein, even though these days you have certain apps which are maybe catering to within a particular region, so they're acting as intermediaries wherein they provide these various cooked food from the hotels or restaurants to these various people who can book these from online. But prima facie, you find that they have not been. It's not scalable to that extent. So this is the difference that I wanted to show: entrepreneurship versus startup. So Big Bazaar is basically an entrepreneurship model. So it has about 350 plus stores in about 100 plus cities. The valuation of that company is close to 2000 crores. So this is a 2019 figure, and it was founded in 2001. So as you can see, when you compare that with Flipkart on the right-hand side, you find that they only have 6 warehouses, 0 stores. So if you look at the investment that they may have made when compared to Big Bazaar, it's much less. And look at the valuation. So it is 50 times more valuable than Big Bazaar over there. And look at when it was established. It was established in 2007 when compared to Big Bazaar, which was established in 2001. So primarily, why did Flipkart succeed over there is primarily because of the innovation they did in this business. Even though initially when they started out, they did not have products, but they were into delivering these products across India, at least the major cities. Now you find that even to rural areas, they are delivering. So the founders of Flipkart, in fact, were working in Amazon in the Silicon Valley in the US, the 2 founders. And then they quit their job, came back to India to start Flipkart based on that particular model, and they've been successful. So these Flipkart as well as Amazon are 2 big competitors you find in the e-commerce sector over there. So when you're moving from an entrepreneurship to startup, your scalability is your outreach is large. So your pan India coverage you are getting. Big Bazaar. So if you look at that. Even though they have 350 plus odd stores, but then they only cater to the cities wherein they are located. But then Flipkart has gone it caters to the pan India category for various products and services that they offer. So they are also into now. They also provide logistic services. They have their e-cart, which caters to most of these to delivering most of these products that are available on Flipkart. Now moving on to the criteria for startups. So this is the government of India criteria that is there. This is revised. This is the 2019 definition. So we had the 2016 was when initially the criteria for startups was established by the government of India. So as you can see, the first and foremost requirement is that you must establish your company as a private limited company, or as a partnership firm, or as a limited liability partnership. So it has to be registered or incorporated. So that is the key requirement as a company. Second, the turnover should be less than 100 crores in any of the previous financial years. So previously it was 25 crores. Now they have actually increased it to 100 crores, but this is only applicable for startups that have registered post March 2019. So the ones which may have registered between 2015 to 19, they may still they will fall in the category of the earlier startup definition, wherein the turnover was restricted to 25 crores in any of the previous financial years. And then there is also a period that is a startup is going to be considered as a startup only for 10 years from the date of its incorporation. So if you look at this 2016 definition, it was 5 years from the date of incorporation. So even the time has been doubled. So the turnover has been increased by 4 times and the time has been doubled. And interestingly, the fourth requirement, as you see, is that the startup should be working towards innovation or improvement of existing products and services, and should have the potential to generate employment or create wealth. So that is how they have defined. So previously, if you look at the previous definition there, their focus was on innovation and technology driven product, services, and processes. But they have actually widened the definition when you look at the 2019, and they've brought in the scalability aspect as well into the definition over there. So what is excluded is a entity which has been formed by splitting up or reconstruction of an existing business actually shall not be considered as a startup. So these are what are excluded from startup. So if you come up with a spin-off from an already existing business, that will not be considered as a startup. Now, moving on to the startup recognition process. So you'll find that in the startup recognition process, a startup is considered to be eligible, as I said, based on the requirements that I highlighted in the previous slide. Now, the process of application is very simple. Either you can download this app that is available on this Play Store or iOS, or you can go to the portal which is set up by the DPIIT, the Startup India portal, and then you can submit the application. So it's basically once you submit an application, you need to show a copy of certificate of incorporation or registration, and also write up about the nature of business, highlighting how it is working towards innovation development or improvement of products or processes, or its scalability, as I said, in terms of employment generation or wealth creation. So scalability is an aspect that has also been brought up over here, even if you're not working on innovation or maybe developing or improvement of products or services. But then if you have increased the scalability, then that can still be considered as a criteria for recognition as a startup. Now, once you have submitted the application, I believe it hardly takes 2 or 3 minutes to submit the application. All you need to have probably your PAN card, the company registration document. So the startup registration, I've got a sample. I'll show it in the next slide. So once you apply for recognition of a startup, how the certificate looks like once it is approved. So once an application is submitted, it can either be recognized as a startup or the application may be rejected by DPIIT. So DPIIT is Department for Promotion of Industrial and Internal Trade. So previously it was called as DIPP, and now it has been changed to DPIIT. This is how the startup certificate or recognition certificate looks like once it is approved. So you have the certificate number, and then you have the company name, which I have actually blackened over there in the sense that annotated. And whether it's a private limited company or whether it's an LLP, limited liability partnership, or whether it's a partnership firm. So the nature of the company and when it has been registered. So you see that it's been registered on 25 to 2019. So there is a date of issue as well as there is a date of validity also over there. So as you can see, there is also a disclaimer over here. It says that it shall be valid only for 10 years from the date of its incorporation, only if its turnover for any of the financial year has not extended beyond 100 crores. So if in any of the financial years you cross the 100 crore barrier, then this sees you no longer remain a startup company. You cease to be a startup company over there. So that's how it is defined. Now, what are the benefits when you are setting up an entity as a startup? You can do it as maybe as I said, a legal entity or maybe as a MSME. But over MSME or legal entity, what are the benefits that you have if you are setting up as a startup, provided you meet all those criteria that we mentioned in one of the slides? So those 4 criteria have to be met. So it can't be just a traditional entrepreneurship model based on which you may be trying to register it as a startup over there. So once you register as a startup, you have certain benefits that you have a tax exemption over there. So first, the company must be a recognized startup. As I showed, you have to apply to DPIIT and get that recognition certificate. Only once you get that recognition certificate can you avail tax exemption on the products or services that you're providing to the market. And then there is a limitation as well. Tax exemption is only for the private limited or limited liability partnership, that is LLP. So it does not extend to the partnership firm. So there are 3 categories we looked. So it's only applicable to private limited or limited liability partnership. and it is eligible for tax exemption under Section 81AC. The other condition is that the startup should have been incorporated after 1st of April 2016. So normally the tax benefit is extended for the first 3 years, as you can see. So once you get a clearance, the startup can avail a tax holiday for 3 consecutive financial years out of its first 10 years since its incorporation. So if you look at the previous certificate that I showed, so it's 3 years from the date of its incorporation that you can claim a tax benefit over there, or tax exemption over there. Now, to promote the funding to startup companies, because one of the main requirements also is you find that you may have a very good innovative idea, but then you may be lacking on the funds over there. So in such situations, if angel investors, will discuss about what are the different kinds of different categories of investors. So angel investors are the ones who invest in a particular startup at very, very early stages, and they are normally individuals or maybe a consortium of individuals who may be investing their own money into a particular startup company. So there are benefits if you are an angel investor. So as you can see, if you have minimum net worth of 2 crores or the average return income of more than 25 lakhs in the previous 3 financial years, it will be eligible for 100% tax exemption, provided you are investing in startups and which is above the fair market value. Now, other benefits that you normally find for recognized startups are self-certification and compliance under 9 environmental and labor laws. So you're not required to take prior permission. All you need to do is you need to certify that you are meeting all these or you're complying with all these requirements of the environmental and labor laws. So otherwise, normally, if you look at the cumbersome procedure that you have to follow for the normal legal entity, you may have to take prior permission. Only after taking prior permission, you may be in a position to get your company registered over there. Now, government is also providing support in the form of for IPR, for acquisition of IPRs in particular. And this you find that they bear the facilitation cost and provide 50% rebate on trademark filing. We have specifically, I'll be discussing about that as well. The government has also set up a 10,000 crore fund for investment into startups through alternative investment funds. Public procurement norms of central governments, ministries and departments have got specific conditions for products which are developed or services provided by startups. So there's certain relaxations in the procedures for applying to these, what you would say, the tenders that are notified by these government ministries or departments. Fast tracking and providing a rebate for up to 80% in filing patents. Well, I'll show how it works. Basically, there are 2 categories of applicants when we look at the statutory fees. That means the fees that you have to pay to the patent office or the firms for trademark or design. So there is a reduction if you qualify as a startup company over there. So it is equivalent to a natural person. So the same fees that an individual pays is what you may have to pay. But if you're registered as a legal entity, you may have to pay 5-time fees for filing and even for requesting, even for submitting a request for an examination. Right, and there are certain exemptions. For instance, if you see normally in the case of government tenders, there's a requirement for you to submit an earnest money. There is certain exemptions provided to startups, even in the public procurement norms. Winding up a company, so it is normally not easy to wind up a company and to label it as bankrupt. But in the case if you are registered as a startup company and for some if the business has not been successful or your startup idea has not been successful, then there is a possibility that you can wind up in 19 days under Insolvency and Bankruptcy Code 2016. Now moving on to schemes for facilitating IPR in particular, you have the startup scheme, which is in fact funded by the Government of India by this Controller General of Patents, Trademarks and Designs. So what they do is normally they have empaneled facilitators. So this could be individuals or could be law firms that provide basically advice. They provide information on protection and promotion of IPRs. They provide assistance, drafting and filing of application for patents, trademarks and designs. So these are specific categories of IPRs for which you have schemes by the Government of India under the scheme for facilitating acquisition of IPR for startups. And also to attending to prosecution. So it's not just providing free advisory services, but also providing assistance, drafting and filing, and also attending to prosecution till the grant. So once a patent is filed, you also need to ensure that the patent gets granted, or any form of IPR, trademark or design also has to be ensured that you get a protection for such patents, trademarks or designs. So you have to do it till the grant of the patent, trademark and design. So that is something that are the responsibilities of a facilitator. So the whatever professional fees are incurred, so these are actually borne by the Controller General for patents, designs and trademarks, as I mentioned before. So there is a slab which is set by the government for each form of IPR. So for patents, there are different fees. For copyright, there are different fees, and there are different fees for design. So for each activity, so for example, you have certain fees for filing, you have certain fees for prosecution, and you have certain fees once it is granted. So at each stage, the Government of India would pay you the fees if you are an empaneled facilitator with the SIPP. Now, criteria for availing the scheme is what the government says is you have to be a recognized startup. So if you have that particular certificate with you, you can always avail the scheme. So you can approach any of the empaneled facilitators. I'll quickly just show you what that is. So I'll quickly browse through that website. Now, you need to understand that the professional fees are borne by the government, but the statutory fees that are associated have to be actually borne by the startups themselves. The startup company has to bear this. That means whatever filing fees or whatever fees that are charged by the patent office or the trademark office or the design office have to be met by the startups themselves for each application. So for each application, if you're filing one patent application, whatever cost is associated with the filing and which is charged by the patent office, that have to be met by the by what you say the applicant themselves over there. Now this is just the fees, the patent minimum patent fees that you may have to pay if you want to file a patent application in Indian context. So as you can see, there are two categories of applicants and there are two filing modes. So one is the e-filing mode and the other one is the physical filing mode. So in the e-filing mode, you can directly file the application if you have a digital certificate, a digital signature, and also if you have registered yourself on the portal of the Indian Patent Office. So if you are a national person or a startup or a small entity, the fees for filing a patent application is 1,600. So this is what you will have to pay from your pocket if you are a startup. And if you have approached an empaneled facilitator under the SIPP scheme. And for request for examination, you will have to pay 4,000 fees. Now, these are the minimum fees. The fees for request for examination may not change. That means these are the current fees. If the patent office revises, then these fees also would be revised. But the application fees is 1,600 for 30 pages and 10 claims. So if your patent invention or your patent application goes beyond 30 pages or goes beyond 10 claims, for each additional page, you will have to pay extra fees. Likewise, for each additional claim, you will have to, each additional claim beyond 10, you will have to pay the additional fees as stipulated by the patent office. So if you have not registered as a startup or a small entity, so you can see what's the difference. So you end up paying 5 times the fees over there, not just for application, but also for request for examination. So these are the two fees that you have to pay mandatorily, at least the minimum fees. That means filing fees, the application fees while you're filing a patent application. Likewise, when you are submitting a request for examination of the application. So unless you submit a request for examination, the patent office is not going to examine your application. So these are the fees, minimum fees that you may have to pay if you have to file a patent application in India under the SIPP scheme. So the professional fees you are not required to pay. Comparing it with the Kerala Startup Mission, so we have this mission in Kerala. So there it works on a reimbursement scheme. So here it's not a reimbursement scheme as you see. So there they refund the cost of patent filing, the professional fees. There's a ceiling. I think it is 1 lakh or maybe 70,000, 70 or 75,000 is what they provide the cost up to that for one patent application. Is in the form of a reimbursement. So different states may have different policies on how they facilitate IPR. So I've just given you two examples of one of at the national level and the one at the state level, particularly focusing on Kerala. The physical fees are if you are submitting the application actually by post or you're submitting it in person at the patent offices. So we have 4 patent offices across India. Depending on your jurisdiction, if you are approaching, in the case of South India, it is Chennai. So if you are submitting an application physically at Chennai patent office or you are sending it by post, then you may have to shell out 10% more fees when compared to the online filing fees. That's a difference that you end up paying for filing fees. So just a moment, I'll quickly also show you the controls are. Well, this is Startup India website, but just a moment. I actually wanted to show. Okay, yeah, so now it's done. Yeah, so this is the site that I wanted to show. So it's on the Indian Patent Office site. You'll find this scheme for facilitating startups intellectual property protection. So you can refer to the scheme. So that's what I have based. So I've discussed in brief what the conditions are. You can refer to the annexure for locating the various empaneled facilitators. So you can see even I'm there as one of the empaneled facilitators. So this is the recent list. This is valid for until 2023. Initially, it was started off as a pilot program for 1 year, but now it has been extended till it has been in fact revised. The extension has been given twice or thrice now. Currently, it's valid till 2023. That means you can actually avail the facility. Okay. Yeah. So quickly moving on to my presentation. Now, let's quickly look at the startup success stories that we have, that I have able to come across, and this is one of the startup stories that we have, of that of a Fresh Desk, which was founded in 2010 by Mr. Girish Mathrubootan and Shan Krishnaswamy. The venture in no time gained the attention of some of the leading venture capitalists in India. It was initially started off in a small room. Today it has space of at least one of the spankish lanes of Chennai IT highway. Zoho is one of these accounting tools that has actually in fact gained a lot of prominence is as you can see, it's actually is competing with big giants such as Oracle, Microsoft, and Google. So as a startup company, if the scalability is high, if you're able to identify that problem for which you may be providing an innovative solution, so there is a likelihood that you may be in a position to scale it up to a large level, particularly in the IT sector. Policy Bazaar is also a platform wherein you find that there's a lot of policies being provided. It acts as a platform between the policy providers and the customers over there. So most of these, you find even most of these apps such as Zomato and even if you look at Uber, so these basically act as platform for connecting the customers to the entrepreneurs over there. This is one of the major success stories that we normally talk about Zomato, but I think the most successful currently, as Professor Sam was speaking about, is the Byju's cap, so which is also got a valuation of more than I think 3 or 4 billion USD. And currently this year it has been profitable, as was pointed out by Sam sir. So the scalability is going to be very high. So if you have opened a tuition center in your place, well, that's entrepreneurship. But then if you go global, then it actually becomes a scale-up model, or it becomes a startup model over there. So you're catering to a very large population over there, a large customer base, not just maybe in India, but also across the globe. So that's a kind of outreach that you can have when you are moving from the traditional entrepreneurship to these innovative models. Now, moving on to the funding systems, you normally find these are some of the initiatives that you find under startups. One is the funding that is normally done, which is very necessary because we see most of these youngsters may just have these brilliant ideas in their mind, but then they may not have the money to invest. So if you look traditionally, that's one of the major paradigm shift that has occurred. So these days, there are people willing to actually finance your idea if it is innovative and if it has got a market value over there. So in such situations, you'll find that people are willing to invest over there because then they can foresee the future of such companies over there. So funding is one of the key requirements over there. If you break up into these initiatives, wherein you have different kind of funders, you have. We'll discuss about what the different categories of funding are and who the funders, how we can categorize these funders into. So it can be a venture capitalist, it can be an angel investor, or even bank, or they may be, you may be in fact what you would say, opening an IPO over there. So there are different ways ways and means by which you can ensure funding when compared to the previous times where it was very difficult for you to get funding. Maybe you had to invest only from your own pocket, or you had to rely on banks, and then banks are not. When you look traditionally, may not be the ideal platform to fund these ideas, right? So the next step normally you find is acceleration. So in these cases, you find most of these startups begin working with one of these top accelerators. This is an ASCOM initiative that you have seen, which has catered to 10,000 startup programs for exceptional prospects and ideal way towards working all the way up to the top accelerators. Mentoring is also very important. Primarily, so mentoring is nothing but providing the basic knowledge or guidance on at the various stages of startup. So even I was part of one of these startup initiatives that was initiated at CUSAT. So in fact, it is interesting that at various stages, it's not just the money, but also probably your inputs or the guidance that is necessary for most of these youngsters who may not be aware of what needs to be done at each stage. So every stage mentoring is required, and you find in certain situations it's the investors who may be actually mentoring them. But otherwise, if you are there in some sort of a startup mission, such as a Kerala startup mission. They will also provide you mentors, and either they may charge a nominal fees or they may not charge any fees, depending on the kind of mentoring that is done over there. So there are a lot of mentors also that have empaneled with these startup missions that you have in every state. And then there is also an enterprise connect. This is where the selected startups get the opportunity to display and explore the offering in front of top executives across the industries. And the idea is to let these set of startups explore strategic alliances, partnerships, and mergers and acquisitions. Now, if you divide the startup sector into these following categories, you find that e-commerce is the one which is the hottest sector currently. As I mentioned before, we also look 43% of the startups are in fact in that particular sector. So which is followed by health tech and fintech, and then you have energy, food, education. Education post COVID has in fact been the focus. In fact, I recall during the last year when we were actually evaluating some of these startup ideas, we saw that there were a lot of models for education that were coming up for online, providing platforms for providing online education. So that's something that has in fact uh, has been on the rise since COVID. So that's on the rise. We have seen that various schools, various colleges, various universities have adopted these online tools. So whether it's a learning management system or whether you're subscribing to Zoom, so all those in fact have been on the rise, and there are a lot of startup companies who are actually looking at that particular area. What is interesting is people always try to come up a USP of their product whenever you are evaluating these startup proposals. So that is really interesting when you attend these in person and see how wonderful ideas these young entrepreneurs have in their minds. Now, what is important is with regards to market-driven data is this, that if you look at startup system, sorry, yeah. If you are not carrying out a market analysis prior to introducing your product or service in the market, this is what you can end up with, right? So you call it as a wheel, as you can see. So why he has not been able to attract any venture capital? So as you see, even though it's a wheel, but then you can understand what's the limitation of this based on its self-explanatory over there based on the figure. You can clearly understand that this is not going to attract any capital over there, whether it's venture capital or any other problem. So you have to choose. Don't choose the wrong problem in arriving at a solution. So always choose a market driven problem. So if you're choosing a problem that does not have any commercial value, then you may be scratching the wrong head over there. Now, if we quickly look at the profile of these founders, that means of the startups, you find most of them, as you can see, have two founders. So 41% of these startups have been initiated by or are owned by two founders. In fact, 39% of them are owned by a single founder. So that's the kind of even a single person can actually start a startup. It is though we look at why it is not advisable. You always need to have a multidisciplinary team over there to always come up with startups. But then if it's the young blood, they may actually just based on their idea, they may directly jump without evaluating all the factors prior to setting up a startup or entering into the product into the market with a product or service or a process. Most of these founders, as you can see, have got postgraduate degrees, and only 42% of them are 42% of them are graduates over there. If you look at the gender breakup, we've seen that it's 5% of the startups have female founders. So this is different from the NASSCOM figure that we're talking about. So I'll quickly jump through this. looking at the stage of a growth of a startup company, likewise also looking at the funding at the various stages of this particular growth. So you can see how the growth happens. Initially, you have an idea and you pitch it up to someone, or could be an evaluating agency, could be a single, as we talk about, could be an angel investor. So angel investors are people who are individuals, or could be a consortium of individuals. Venture capitals are normally firms, so we'll talk about it. So at a very early stage, you find that they are investing their money, primarily angel investors, if they feel that the idea may have a commercial potential over there. But as you can see, the venture capitalists actually wait for the product in the stage where it is ready for rollout or post rollout. So that's when the venture capital funds actually come in. An angel investor may not be investing the kind of money that a venture capital fund would invest, because then those are firms which may have huge funds, and they also may have these technical competence or market intelligence, or what we say. In addition to the financial inputs, they may also provide other inputs, because angel investor these days you find that they may be well educated in the sense how the market behaves, or what the commercial viability of that product could be, or how the idea is going to be commercially. But venture capital has got this team, so it's basically they know everything, right from how this product may behave in the market if it is introduced, what are the lacunae available, and how probably it can be fixed over there. And then if your funding is more, as you grow, I've seen some of these startup companies, when you look, even after initial stages, there is investment by the angel investors, and later on you also find the venture capitalist coming in. But once you are trying to grow, you may have to approach a bank, probably to get huge funds over there. If it does not suffice, during the expansion phase, you find they also go for initial public offering. When compared to banks, in IPO, probably you will have to give them a stake. But in the case, if you're going for a bank loan, then probably stake, you only need to pay out the loan that you may be taking. So you're not required to give any stake to the bank. So that's a call that they may take based on the requirements and needs. Now, moving on to funding, these are different kinds of funding mechanisms that we find. Bootstrapping is something that you're using your personal savings over there to start to set up a startup company. Now, crowdfunding, you are relying on your friends and relatives for funding your initiative or your business model over there. Angel investment is someone who is an individual or a consortium who will not fall into the other categories, and who is regularly investing on these various kinds of startups over there. When venture capitalists, you normally find these are big firms who may be willing to invest in your idea, and that they come at a much later stage, as we talked about. And banks would give you loans. But initially, I think I did see that some of the loans that were available by the banks had got cumbersome procedures. But then it was pertaining to one of these public sector banks. I'm not sure whether it has eased down in the case of post-COVID with regards to funding to the startup companies. Then there are various grants and scholarships that are in fact provided by the various government agencies. You find under the various stages of the product development, or at the idea stage, or when you're moving into your proof of concept. And then finally, when you're moving from the proof of concept to the marketing stage, and you're ready to introduce your product into the market. And then there are various competitions as well, wherein if you're successful in convincing the board or the committee over there, you may be in a position to earn some sort of funding over there. Now, 10 questions you must always try to answer when you're trying to venture into a startup venture. The first thing is, how large is actually your addressable market? So whether is it restricted? So if you look at the traditional entrepreneurship model, if I'm setting up a restaurant, or maybe I'm setting up a supermarket chain. So my market would be restricted to that particular geography, unless I also am actually using the e-commerce models to e-commerce channels to in fact sell my products over there, right? And how fast is that particular market growing? So if you look at there could be something that's in the field of information technology, that could be the growth could be very high over there, but then the risk also could be very high, because the in IT you find that most of these technologies become obsolete very easily, or very early, I mean. Yeah, I think the request all of you to kindly mute your microphones. Now, who makes up your team is also very, very important. If you look at the empirical study based on startups, if it is just people from the same disciplines or from the same educational background, those startups are less successful than the ones which have, in fact, a team from different or diverse disciplines over there. So if all of you are engineers, then there is a likelihood that what happens is, because if you look at any particular company that is set up, you'll find that employs always people from diverse backgrounds, because that works as a team over there. So if you only have a team comprising of engineers and you don't have people from the management or from other departments, then you will be the ones who will be doing all the work, and then you may not have the expertise in all those areas. So it's always advisable to have a diverse team over there to the startup to be more successful. So this is basically based on certain studies. Now, what is your secret sauce over there? So basically, what is the USP of your particular idea? So how are you going to market it? So what is the uniqueness, and why do you feel that uniqueness is going to have some commercial potential? So that is what you have to tap over there. So we've seen that when evaluating these proposals, some of these entrepreneurs, budding entrepreneurs, are still no idea as to what actually the USP of that would be. And likewise, you also need to evaluate what the barriers to entry and competitive advantage are. So who are your competitors in that area? Are these big companies over there, or if you're catering to a niche market? So all those things have to be carefully evaluated or examined prior to moving into that area. So there's a lot of work that you may have to do, preparation that you may have to do prior to entering into a particular market. So it's not just the idea that you have, but then what's the commercial viability of idea, and what are the barriers that it may have when you're trying to enter into a particular market. And financials are very, very important. So because this, it's not just the financials that you're looking at, the investment, but also how you're going to grow. That means one is that you need to have the necessary financial investment, maybe for a period of 3 or 4 years. Well, if you have bootstrapped your idea, but then later on, if you had to stop, or you had to in fact not proceed with that idea primarily because there was no funding, so that also can be a problem. So whenever you're starting, look at least how, for the 5 years, how the financials are going to be, evaluate that, and then also have the necessary funds arranged for that. So you can't just have a financial planning for the first year, or only when you have an idea, and then rely on others. So always the financials have to be there. Likewise, what are you going to do in the next 5 or 10 years? What is the profitability that you have? So this is some of the questions that these experts ask when you're pitching your idea. They will always ask, how much money are you going to invest? What is going to be the cost of the product in the market? So is it going to be higher than what is already available? So then in such cases, there may not be a market. Or are you catering to a niche segment over there? So there are a lot of factors that you may have to look into particularly when you're pitching your idea to an investor. So there are a lot of questions that these investors would ask. So it's not just the brilliance of your idea, but also probably uh, the commercial viability and the risk that is associated with that idea. And if you have in fact got some sort of an IPR protection, that also gives a value. So we looked into one of these speakers when he said that if you had a patent the chances that the funding would increase by 50% or maybe 100% more. So those kind of things also can add value to your idea or your concept. So these are the clear roadmaps that you need to have, not just the idea, but also the plan on how you want to execute it. And the financials have to be covered out. What is your expected profits maybe in 1 year or maybe in 5 years? So if in the initial 1 or 2 years, you're going to run into losses, but eventually in the third or fourth or fifth year, you're eventually going to go into profits. So if you recall, I mentioned about Byju's. So Byju's is there for quite some time now, but only this year it has gone profitable. So that's a kind of roadmap that you have to build prior to moving into these areas. Who is your competition and how do you beat them is what also you need to evaluate. Likewise, when you have an idea, always there's one question that you can ask, why can't Tata or Reliance do this? I mean, or any big established company. So these are the 10 questions that you must always have in your mind when you're trying to evaluate your future to setting up a startup, not just setting up a startup, but also on the growth and the evolution of your startup company for a successful venture. Now, quickly, because of COVID-19, we have seen there are some schemes that have come up by Government of India. It's the ACT Scheme Action COVID team or COVID-19 team. So this has in fact been set up by the India Startup Company. So they have garnered 1,000 crore grant. And then particularly for combating COVID-19 with the immediate impact. In addition to that, the Government of India has also come up with a joint venture with US. So when you see that they are trying to, these two are particularly for COVID-19 that has come up to combat COVID-19. So when you are trying to support and foster joint applied R&D to generate public good through commercialization of technology developed by partnership between US and Indian researchers and entrepreneurs. These are some of the specific themes. Now, quickly, I'll move on to the KSM startup schemes. I'll just maybe have a couple of slides, and with that, I'll wind up. I believe there are 5 or 6 slides. So, KSM is nothing but Kerala Startup Mission. So under the Kerala Startup Mission, you have various startup schemes. So you have different stages that we discussed of incubation. You have the pre-incubation stage, you have the incubation stage and the accelerator stage. So pre-incubation stage is the first stage, which can be of 3 to 6 months, followed by the incubation stage. It can be 6 to 12 months, and finally the accelerator stage of 3 to 6 months. So some of the support that is given by the Kerala Startup Mission is the entrepreneur support services. They provide you marketing support. They can provide support for services to start up in legal and statutory compliances. So if you want to set up your startup company and other requirements that you may have to meet for all other legal requirements, whether even in the case of approaching a particular law firm or for getting your trademark registered or your patent filed. So they have got an empaneled team for that, and they act as a platform to link these various startup aspirants to these various agencies. So they, as you can see, also they provide secretarial services. They help you in preparation of audited statements, financial plan and projections. So some of these may incur charges, but then the charges would be on the lower side. It's not going to be, it's going to be nominal charges that they may charge for some of these activities that you find. So there are various financial plans and projections. There's legal, IP and client agreements, the various for whether it's for patents, trademarks or copyrights. You find that they have arrangement with various law firms within the Kerala startup model. So they may link you to these law firms. And then there is a reimbursement scheme, as I mentioned, for various categories of IP. So for patents, there is a ceiling of 1 lakh. For trademarks and copyright, I'm not exactly aware to what extent that ceiling is there. So for Indian patent, I think it's close to 1 lakh, and for a PCT application or international application or a foreign patent, the fees is the ceiling is much higher, so could be 2 or 3 lakhs. So those are the schemes by which they will, even though initially you may have to pay the fees, but then it would be reimbursed by the Kerala Startup Mission, provided you have been incubated in the startup mission over there. So that's one of the key requirements. I think the only exemption is for the students who may not yet be incubated at startup, wherein they can actually reimburse the fees associated with acquisition of IPR. Other support services they provide is entrepreneur support services. In fact, if you visit the Kerala Startup Mission website, there are a lot of programs that they conduct online. Every week you may have 2 or 3 programs, and all of these programs are normally recorded and put on the YouTube channel. So that's one of the things that they do. Post-COVID, in fact, these online programs have been on the rise, but previously they used to carry out these in-person programs wherein these programs were recorded and put across on the various public platforms such as YouTube. And they provide a platform to work with various sector and tech experts. As I said, mentors, you find that for each sector, there may be multiple mentors available, and depending on the need or requirement of the startup company, they can always facilitate that process over there. And frequently, they also have these visits by the industry and investor demo days, so wherein these investors may be available at their Kerala startup office, and then they may invite all these startups in that particular area of technology to make their proposals. They arrange a lot of workshops and community. Even in fact, they have got various courses that they are offering over there to educate these startup companies for the various phases that they may have. So right from education to capacity building to in fact training. So you have all these various activities that are being carried out by Kerala Startup Mission. I believe this would also be there in all other startup missions that you find across India in various states. Right. And they provide you these facilities for very nominal fees they charge. So even we have one at our university, even though it's a very small. So one is we provide them space for very nominal fees, and then we also have these fab labs and future tech labs for fabricating your products. So there are various instruments that you can avail by paying nominal fees over there. So it's basically not free over there, but then we charge nominal fees from the startup companies. So you provide all the facilities or the ecosystem that is necessary by way of these incubation units, either within the academic framework or within these initiatives by the state governments or by the national government over there. Now, different marketing support is also provided for the digital or print media branding and promotions, product launch coverage, and corporate or product promo video productions, various personal relation activities, public relation activities are also included for the advertisements of products or startup stories. So there are a lot of things that they do. I'm not going to go into the details of all this. And as I mentioned, they also have this knowledge of skill enhancement over there, providing mentorship or connect programs, future technology labs, the Fab Lab program. So they have got a big Fab Lab over there. Then you have these various 3D printers which you can use for printing these products, customizing your products and getting it printed over there, so that they've got a huge facility as well over there for that. Now they also have these exchanges and global immersion program under there, wherein you have this international entrepreneurship exchange program, which is basically a combination of schemes which is aimed at giving the students and young entrepreneurs of the state maximum exposure to the international ecosystem, particularly startup ecosystem, and also to foster cooperation between startup ecosystems across the world. So there is visits happening by these MNCs or startups from outside India to these facilities, and likewise, some of them also visit to these foreign countries to gain knowledge over there and try to incorporate that over here. And even the companies, I recall one of these visits that was discussed when we had this program by Kerala Startup Mission, that in fact people from the foreign countries or developed countries are visiting India, and they're looking at the, particularly when I'm talking in the context of the state of Kerala, and they have taken various, what you would say, takeaways from the ecosystem that's developed in India. So it's not just ourselves who are gaining from the international exposure, but it's also the other way around, that they are also gaining from the India startup ecosystem. Now, innovation grant can be divided into these 4 types. You have the idea grant, you have the product grant, you have the scale up grant, and the R&D grant. So idea grant is normally for converting your idea to a prototype, and is normally limited to 2 lakhs. So this is, I'm talking the context of the Kerala Startup Mission. Now, if you want to develop a prototype from your if you want to develop a product from your prototype, so then in such cases, you see that they may increase the funding, and over here it is 7 lakhs per idea. Scale up, now you want to scale up the product that you have introduced in the market. So for that also, they will give you funding. So scale up is definitely requires more funding than the idea or the product grants. That's the reason you find that they give up to 12 lakhs in one particular year. And finally, the R&D grant is given to highly promising hardware or deep tech startups with working prototypes or IP, which needs to be developed into a final product through extensive R&D. So this grant is normally limited to 30 lakhs per startup. Now finally, we'll also just look at these support for R&D Connect that is there. This is normally for leveraging for startups for developing technology innovations, and those are in the R&D stage. So this is a one-time assistance that is given to the hardware manufacturing startups who have substantial R&D components over there. They should have a working prototype of the product, and the product should have substantial hardware components such that at least 50% of the cost will be for the hardware. And startups must be a member of one of the approved incubators in the state. So this is one of the key requirements that you normally find if you have to. For the idea grant, even if you are not an incubatee of the Kerala Startup Mission, you may still get an idea grant. But for other grants, unless you became unless you're incubated at one of these startups in Kerala, it will be difficult for you to get funding for that. So that is one thing that is very important over there. So it can be used, so there are different allocations. You can use a grant for sourcing hardware components. It could be for technology transfer. It could be for testing or for testing platform creation, etc. So here, as you can see, IP in fact plays a key role over here. So as I mentioned, if your product has a patent, has obtained a patent, or the patent is pending, in such situations, you find that they may be given a preference over there. So if a patent is granted, that gives you more preference over pending patents, because pending patents do not actually have rights over there, as we discussed earlier in the previous talk. Now you have this early stage KSM seed fund. This is primarily to support the startups on the following, such as product development, testing and trials, test marketing, mentoring, professional consultancy, IPR issues, and manpower for day-to-day operations. Right. So eligibility criteria is you have to be a startup registered in Kerala as LLP or private company. So it's the same requirement that we had seen in the case of Startup Mission, Startup India. But then here it has to be in Kerala, and then it is restricted only to LLPs and private limited companies and not to partnership firms. Must be working in an area of innovative product or technology, as we discussed. Either it has to be technology driven or innovation driven. It's not given for service startups and SMEs working in trade and commerce. So it is restricted only for products, not for services. And it is generally to cater to the prototype or MVP stage financing for commercialization of indigenous ideas, innovations, and technologies. And preference is normally given to startups with the startup certification. So as I said, recognition is important. So recognition can only be obtained by getting this startup certificate from the DPIIT. So it's here I'm showing it as DIPP, but it's basically DPIIT. And the upper limit is close to 15 lakhs. So in this case also, you can say in some cases they may give you a soft loan with a simple interest of 6% per annum, and they can avail a 12 months of moratorium on repayment, and the entire amount along with interest has to be repaid in 36 months installment. So you have two sorts of funding. One is grant. In the case of a grant, you're not required to return the money even if you fail over there. But in the case of seed funds, there is a likelihood that you may have to return the money if it's being given as a soft loan. So with that, I end my session, and I'm open for questions, if any.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your informative session. Actually, it is actually packed with huge lot of information. So participants, you can ask your questions or concern right now. Either you can post it in the chat box, or you can post the question directly to the speaker. Any questions? So I think you are all dense with your exam, right? So we have 15 minutes. So if you have any concerns, we can address it right now. If there is no questions, we can wind up, I think so. So that you can prepare for your exam. Yeah. Any scheme for prototype level from central government? So there is a question.
I can see that. Scheme for prototype development from central government, sir, it must be there, but I'll have to refer. I've focused more on the Kerala's mission, but because these model that every state follows is derived from the central government model. So definitely, and I also believe that you may have, for example, the amount of funding that may be there at national level would be much higher than what it is there at state level. So definitely there is going to be a prototype development, as we talked about when you're developing a prototype. So you are actually, in fact, that would come under the category of product funding. So product funding is definitely there in the central government scheme. So when you're moving from idea funding to product funding, so product funding is where we looked at developing a proof of concept. So that is basically a prototype that you're coming up in that stage. So you may get more funds if you are registered under the startup scheme of the government of India. And also you can check at your state. For example, from whichever state you are, you may also look at the startup mission policies of the state. So this model is there in all these startups. You find the idea grant, the product grant, as we discussed about. So product grant is where you will get this funding for prototype development. Okay, fine, Asha, we can wind up. I think there are no further questions.
Yeah. Yes. We can move on to the vote of thanks session. Darshana.
Yes, ma'am. I invite Anina Vincent, second semester LLM IP PhD, to please deliver the vote of thanks.
Thank you, Darshana. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm so happy to deliver the vote of thanks to Radish sir because of sir is our professor in UCBRS. And today we get very informative class on the topic startup ecosystem and intellectual property rights. This is so helpful and useful for our future. So first I would like to thank Dr. Redhan. Many unknown information about startup is go through this session. So thank you, sir. Sir begins the session with the history of entrepreneurship and its journey to startup. Then sir compare the startup with an entrepreneurship with the example of Big Bazaar and Flipkart. Then startup criteria, recognition process, then its samples, all are discussed through the session. After this, the benefit of a startup are explained. Then different schemes for facilitating IPR and startup, all are vastly discussed through the session. So thank you, sir. Thank you for giving the valuable session. I got a lot of information from this session. So thank you from the bottom of my heart. Next, I would like to thank IUCBRS and Atal Academy for giving the platform of study. Next, I would like to thank Basi sir and Asha ma'am for organizing and giving the instructions for this session. Last but not least, I would like to thank everyone present here for your keen participation and attention. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, sir.
So we can resume at 1:50 for the exam. So we'll be sharing the exam link only in Zoom. So the exam start at 2 o'clock and it's a 30